Hey, do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
Do you know anything about the history between Japan and Korea?
Yeah, I heard there was some animosity between them. I don't know the full story.
Have you heard specifically about the Japanese invasions of Korea?
No, I didn't know Japan invaded Korea. What happened?
Well, in the 16th century, one of Japan's feudal rulers, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, was power hungry and wanted to expand Japan's rule into China. However, to reach China, Japanese soldiers had to pass through the Korean peninsula.
Originally, Korea was not Japan's target for invasion. Daimyo and military leader Toyotomi Hideyoshi had his eyes set on Ming China and only intended on using Korea as an asset to get to China. Korea had economic, political, and social ties to China through hegemony established during the Tang Dynasty. Hideyoshi planned on taking advantage of Korea's connection to China by persuading and demanding the chosen king, Korea's leader, to join forces with Japan and allow them through the Korean peninsula. Hideyoshi embarked on 2 attacks of the Korean peninsula, one from 1591 to 1593, when it was met with resistance by Chinese forces, and a second one from 1597. This would give Japan access to Chinese borders where Japanese forces could invade and set up vessels for samurai. However, when given the option to submit or be conquered, the chosen king declined Hideyoshi's request, defending Korea's alliance with China. Despite Korea's refusal, Hideyoshi was still determined to invade China and would simply take Korea down in the path to China.
When Japan first invaded Korea in 1592, a massive 158,800 Japanese warriors penetrated Korean borders and military given the advancement of the Japanese army. They began entering through town to town, pillaging and tearing apart neighborhoods, families, and lives. During the invasion, Hideyoshi ordered soldiers to cut off the noses of the Koreans killed in battle as a tally of how many people each soldier was able to kill. It was customary for soldiers to cut the heads off those they had defeated. However, the number of people killed in the invasion was too massive for the heads to fit in the Japanese ships returning from war front. Instead, Korean noses were cut off and collected by the soldiers and used to determine how much the soldier would get paid. This incentivized the Japanese soldiers to kill more and more Koreans, even if they knew it was not right or they did not need to. Those noses were later buried and used as a base for a memorial dedicated to Korea and the lives lost in the invasion. The name of the memorial, Hanazuka, meaning mound of noses, was later changed to Mimizuka, meaning mound of ears, and the memorial remains secluded in a shrine in Kyoto honoring Hideyoshi. The Mimizuka is almost unknown to Japanese public, unlike the Koreans. Only a few Japanese or foreign tourists visit the site to this day. Even in educational books, the ear mound is only mentioned once or twice, or oftentimes none at all. On September 28, 1997, marked the 400th anniversary of the Mimizuka. There, a ceremony was held in respect for those who were killed. It was open to people of all nationalities and all faiths. To this day, the memorial stands.
To this day, Japan has not paid reparations to Korea for the physical, emotional, and political damage Koreans have had to live with. The closest Japan has come to paying reparations was giving $8.3 million to South Korea in response to the use of Korean women as comfort women and sex slaves during World War II. Many Koreans are still angered by the actions of the Japanese because they feel as though no amount of money could take back the events that occurred during the war. Somewhere around 100,000 young women were kidnapped and forced into prostitution, primarily for the use of the Japanese military. Because of the many brutal actions of the war taken against Korea, it is questionable whether relations between Japan and Korea will ever be the same. On December 10, 2011, in Seoul, South Korea, there sits a statue called the Peace Monument, It was placed in front of the Japanese embassy looking across from a narrow street in central Seoul. The statue was placed so that the Japanese diplomats see it as they leave their embassy. It carries a clear message. Japan should acknowledge what it did to as many as 200,000 Asian women, mostly Koreans, that were forced or lured into working as prostitutes at frontline brothels for Japanese soldiers. Japan has repeatedly demanded that the statue be removed, but Seoul and especially the victims have rejected such demands. The Japanese government in 1993 has admitted that their military was involved in the establishment and management of comfort stations and expressed sincere apologies and remorse. In 2015, the issue remained controversial when Seoul and Tokyo signed a landmark agreement in which the Japanese would give 1 billion yen, or approximately $8.7 million, to a fund to help the victims. But high-level talks have halted and there isn't an official denominations of actions by the Japanese. Most Koreans say the apologies did not go far enough into the responsibility for the Comfort Women program and point to Japanese history textbooks which downplay the country's war crimes. The main focus of the monument is to show the brutality of Imperial Japan and the strength of the victims who won't stay silent. In the New Deal, the two governments will refrain from criticizing and blaming each other in the international society, including the United Nations. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe expresses anew his most sincere apologies and remorse to all the women who underwent immeasurable and painful experiences and suffered incurable physical and psychological wounds as comfort women. Prime Minister Abe later stated himself, "I think we did our duty for the current generation by reaching this final and irreversible resolution before the end of the 70th year since the war."